Hey guys, so I'm going to be making a top 100 cards in my collection series. We're going to break this up into 5 videos, 20 cards each. Now, you might be wondering, what are these cards in the background? Well, these are going to be honorable mentions, and I'm going to switch them up every single video. Cases could be made that these cards should be in my top 100, and I'm open to arguments down below in the comment section, or at least what your input is on this, or if any cards should be moved around. But I will say it's very tough, comping some of these cards and kind of valuing where they would be at number wise within my PC. First, the card market goes up and down so much that finding stable prices can be a little bit tough. And when things only have a few sales across, 10, 15, 20 years, it's very tough to judge. And some of these cards have never sold before and are the only ones graded. So I kind of just try to use my judgment on where cards would land within my top 100 and also kind of the honorable mentions. And I also want to say a few stories throughout this series. So once I finish this first stack, 100 through 90, I'll say a little bit of a story of kind of like collecting as a kid and different things like that. So let's get started. The first card I have over here, this is 1892 Bartholdi's Statue of Liberty. And that's why I put this Bartholdi also over here. Again, the card, I don't believe this has sold before. I could be wrong. I picked this up at the Chantilly card show. I do have one other Lone Jack like this that's going to be in the series, although I have a lot of Lone Jack inventors that I did not include, although there is 3 in this top 100. But this guy essentially created the Statue of Liberty. That is the Statue of Liberty here. Now, I think the last 4 sold for like $2,500 or something insane like this, but this is nowhere near 4 condition. The reason why is if you look at the back over here, this has been skinned, and this is something that you'll notice sometimes with 1800s cards. So what happened is a lot of these cards are really thick. If you've ever seen an old judge card in person that hasn't been graded, they're very thick cards. Now, what people would do is they would essentially cut the backs off and put these into scrapbooks because they didn't really need this thick of a back. So that's what I assume happened to this. The other side of things is what people will do sometimes is with like an actress, like not all actresses, unknown actresses or different things like that. They'll cut off the backs and then re-glue them to baseball players. So baseball players obviously command a lot greater value than an unknown actress and just a common technique out there. Now you'll mostly see these as A's, as rebacked, but sometimes they do slide and get numerical grades. So that being said, this is probably one of the first images of the Statue of Liberty. I thought this looked really sweet, and I wanted to have it in my collection. And there's a lot of Statue of Liberty cards out there, but like I said, I think this is the first. So up next, and I don't have too much information about this series, but this was printed in Italy. This is also my assumption, but this is the first Pearl Jam card with the full band. Yeah, it's a 1/5. But the thing is, this card is like very heavily creased. It doesn't really show up that well in the lighting. But when it was raw, like there's a lot of creases in here. But these things are paper thin. So like think of like a Propagandist Montiel. And Pearl Jam obviously being one of the biggest grunge bands out there, or even biggest rock bands out there as well. I'll show you the back here too. And that is what this looks like, Star Collection. There are some other larger bands in this release. There's a Nirvana that I am still searching for, but I've never seen one come up for sale. And this was the only Pearl Jam I've seen for sale in like the last 3, 4, maybe 5 years. Like this is a very tough card. So I don't know how many of there are out there. I know another person who has one raw, but yeah, very tough and hard to say what this would do kind of like in an open market. This card has been picking up steam quite a bit and almost didn't make my top 100 list, but I thought this was a very nice looking 2/5, and it's such a picturesque card. Like, looks super sweet too. So, Flags of All Nations, although this is not the rarest card in the set or even the most expensive card in the set. So, it's a 2/5. It looks like, I don't know if there's like glue stains or like some writing over here, but front looks amazing on this card, and honestly, it's what matters in most cases. So, that over here. We have a 1992 Kurt Cobain. Now the highest graded out there is an 8/5, but getting these in 8 is very tough. You're going to find a lot of centering issues with these cards, so I don't really expect any 9s or 10s. It's possible, but what makes it very tough is this full black back, and these chip so easily. Like, this is a clean copy, but you'll notice a lot of these are chipped all over the place. That's why you'll find like a lot of 5s or 6s with these. It's not too hard of a card to find, but when you do find them in higher grades, it can be. So Kurt Cobain over here. All right, so next we have a Pets Cigarettes of Frank Gotch. Another example of a card that looks really nice, but it has paper loss in the back. And I actually picked this up from Ian. You sometimes see him in the comment section. The most knowledgeable collector that I know. I go to him for information all the time, and this was a pickup overseas in the United Kingdom. But Frank Gotch over here, and a really awesome card within my collection. Stands out, like the colors are super vibrant here on the front. A very tough music card again. This is the 1971 Bergman Jackson 5. Now, Bergman had a lot of different music releases, but this is the hardest one to find, 1971. So they have 69, 70, and also 71. The issue with 71, and I'll show you on the back, is first, like, they were printed a lot less than other years, but they had peel-off backs. So this actually had an original back attached to it, but they were peeled off and pasted into albums. So the only grading company that grades these currently without the back is CGC. When I talked to them, they originally said they were just labeled as authentic, but this one they gave a 1. Not too sure, but either way, this is the first representation of Michael Jackson on cardboard. The one that you see out there, what's labeled as a 1969, is really a 73 card. It's been mislabeled by every grading company, so don't fall for that. This is the first representation, although the first solo cards are in 72. I do have one of the solo cards. Can't remember if it's in this stack or the next one, but 71. And there's also an Elton John in the set. I almost put the Elton John in this series, but it is not there. So there's that card. This is a fun release that I like collecting, and these are Kousis. So these were produced in Malta, and this is Andrew Jackson. So there is U.S. presidents, there's historical figures, and a lot more. I actually have a Ben Franklin coming in soon as an upgrade. Now, if the Ben Franklin was here and graded, it would 100% make my top 100. But since I just sold my, I think I had a 1.5 or a 2, sold that to upgrade, that is why it's not in this video. But I wanted to throw one in here at least. So this is the Andrew Jackson. Like I said, 6 is a very high grade within these. And much tougher to find than your Ogdens. And they have different subject matter than your Ogdens. Like Andrew Jackson, it does not have an Ogden, but he's in this Kousis release. All right. Up next, speaking of Ogdens, we have a Rembrandt over here. And the reason why I put him specifically in here, I have the assumption that specific Ogden cards were short printed. I think this is one of those because I've had safe searches for this card and I have not seen it in years. I know one other person who owns one of these, and I think he's an Australian collector and actually picked it up at a garage sale. But my assumption also is this is one of his first like major releases. People know his 1952 Look and See, and that's a pretty expensive card, and it's a short print, and I say that in quotes. I'd much rather have this card, even than a high-grade 1952 Look and See, because it's tougher to find and way earlier, and this has a blank back over there. So, an example of an Ogden, and all of a few other Ogdens probably in sprinkled throughout. A lot of them were very close to making the top 100. All right, Yuri Gagarin. So this is the first guy ever to go into space. This is a really rare release from 1962. In fact, like, look how much text they have for this release. I don't know what it means. So if anyone wants to translate, go ahead. Again, one of those cards that looks really great. Does have some creases through it. It's a super thin stock card. And this is the only one that I've ever seen. So when I saw this opportunity to pick up this card, I did it. And oh, there you can see a little bit of one of those creases over here, but like a very clean back. And I have another Gagarin card in here. I actually have quite a few space cards, but some of the space cards that I do have, grading companies will not grade, unfortunately, which I have documentation. I want to get them graded and slabbed up, is just to protect them, and also just from like the educational standpoint, because there's a lot of people that don't recognize cards until they are graded, which I disagree with that sentiment, but it is what it is. All right, the last one in this first stack over here is this John Dillinger. Now, this is a G-Men release, and finding a normal John Dillinger G-Men, not tough, right? And even finding in a 4, again, not tough. Like, it is a little bit better condition, but check this out. This isn't your English G-Men, right? Let's flip it over in the back. Of course, I flipped it the wrong way. France. So this is a French G-Men, and I've only seen a handful of French G-Men. I think these are very rare, and I picked this up from a European collector, Globo Chewing Gum, which Globo, by the way, they have some very, very expensive cards. There's a Globo Jesse Owens, there's a Globo Jack Dempsey, and they go for a crazy amount of money. So Globo is a manufacturer over in France, and there is that Dillinger. Although I didn't even realize that until I just looked over in this slab, right? But there's Globo right over there. Globo stuff is very tough, so pretty cool card. All right, now we're into the next 10 batch of cards. Probably should have put these in a specific order. I really didn't visit, like I said. This order is probably going to change by next year, and who knows, like, but and this is a 1937 John Wayne. Now, John Wayne has a few cards in the 1930s, but like not a ton. But this is kind of like his nicest one, I would say, in the 1930s, like picture-wise. Now, this editorial, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce this full set, is very scarce. In fact, like some of the other actors and actresses go for a couple $100. So I could be like way underestimating the value of this John Wayne, but I picked this up in a Twitter sales thread, and as funny as it is, like I barely check Twitter anymore, but there used to be like a vintage like non-sports, or I should just say non-sports in general, sales thread, and I saw this in here, and I picked this up right away. I can't even remember what I paid, but all these spots here, by the way, in the back, I'm pretty sure it's just from like a baggie that PSA puts in here. So, but like I said, very tough set, and John Wayne, very popular actor here in America. Gene Sarazen, 1924 Willard's Chocolate. So these were chocolate cards. I believe that they were manufactured in Canada, and there is a lot of big sports names within this release. Now, this is one of his first cards. He has a strip card from 1921, but I think this is his second card. Could be wrong. But I was trying to look up comps on this one. I was the last one that purchased this, and it was like 2 years ago. And just a very, very scarce card to find. Yeah, 2021, 5/27. If that's when it sold. I don't remember. But either way, really, really sweet golf card. Neil Armstrong, 6.5, Comodex Limited. This was released over in the United Kingdom. And there was also an Aldrin that I had, did not make the list because I put Armstrong in here, and Armstrong does outsell Aldrin. But like, this is a very crisp card, looking at those corners on here. And way tougher to find than his Topps card. So, and I do like that imagery. AC/DC Peters. So this was a regional release out of Australia. And I believe this was with Ice Cream. And you can see Peters Australian Rock History Series. So I believe with like this over here, this was probably attached to like ice cream pints or something like that. Or like an ice cream treat. So I know in baseball cards, like a lot of both regional releases and food and beverage issues tend to get really expensive now. AC/DC, like when they play a concert now, which I'm hoping they do a 2024 tour, like they're going to sell out 50 to 70,000 people. And to be able to get probably one of their rarest cards, they do have a few other rare cards, but I'm not going to talk too much about it because I'm still searching for them. But I would argue that this is one of their best cards out there. And this was right before Back in Black too, I think. So it says Bon Scott died and has been replaced by Brian Johnson, right? And then it has the lineup over here, and so is Bon Scott. So, I mean, they would have probably talked about Back in Black because it's one of the greatest selling albums of all time. So that's how you can kind of date this type of stuff sometimes. All right, so we have an 1897 Stolwerk Benjamin Franklin. Now, I have an Edison also a little bit later in this video. I personally think this 3 Franklin looks way nicer than the 4-5 Edison that you'll see a little bit later on. Like maybe it's because of this down over there, but I love this imagery on this one. I picked this one up raw on eBay and got it graded. Such a cool card. Story time for music. So this was actually distributed at Coachella. So what they did in 2002 is they used like trading cards kind of just to show people the lineups. So one thing to note too is the bands that were higher up had more cards printed. So like Oasis had the most, but as you go down, it was a lot tougher to find these. So like I have a Queens of the Stone Age over here, and Queens is much tougher to find than the Foo Fighters. But you got to remember also at the same time that these really weren't meant to be kept. So finding this in an 8 and my Queens of the Stone Age is a 7 is it's a tough find to, like, this is not an easy card to find by itself anyways. But I would assume like if music cards do take off, you are going to find some of these, but they're going to be like wrinkled up or in really, really bad shape. So when I had the opportunity to pick this one up, I definitely did that. So Foo Fighters over here, their first cards were in 2002. They have a few other cards as well. And yeah, so you can see. It's funny how much it's changed, right? Like it used to be a rock festival. Now it is what it is, right? And then even funnier for like free parking. I doubt they have free parking anymore. It's probably like $100 a car. Well, I have not been to Coachella. This is the other Yuri card that I was actually alluding to a little bit earlier in this video. And this is a gum wrapper, which is funny because probably a lot of people don't think gum wrappers count as cards. I think they do if they have different subject matter on each gum wrapper. There's actually music releases and this set over here that I would count as specific cards. And that's Yuri on here. There's actually a Pele in this set, which is crazy expensive. JFK and Marilyn Monroe are also in the set too. So good luck finding them. Like, I never expected to find this specific copy, but I ended up running into this. All right, next one up over here. I think this is actually 1888. I know a lot of these blank label 1888, but the Georgia Washington. Very, very sharp looking card for a 2. And the reason why I got a 2 is there's a tiny bit of paper loss. It's hard to see over here. Like it's the tiniest bit. Oh, right there. So that's why I got a 2. The front on this looks amazing. And historical figures for presidential stuff has exploded this year. So probably could be higher in this list, maybe lower. I don't know. But either way, it's that. And I know I mentioned I'd talk about a story, but I forgot about it, and we'll do that in the next video. But up next, Sandow. The bigger. Up next is Sandow. This one got an 8, which very, very tough to find on these. Most of these are going to be scratched all over the place, and that's why, like, when you see Ogdens that look really nice and they come back as 4s, it's because of the scratches. Corners and appearance could look really great. And I should mention the Guinea Golds because you'll notice the Guinea Golds present a lot nicer versus the Ogden Taps. The Ogden Taps you'll see every issue, like kind of like a 71 Tops. Anything that happens to corner shows. The Guinea Golds not as much. The Guinea Golds get penalized because of the scratches. So we have an 8 on this Sandow. And this is kind of like one of the first famous bodybuilders, and they actually have a trophy named after him. I'll show you the back here too, but super clean copy over here, an 8. I had to grab that. And lastly, for this first video over here, we have a 1972 tip top of Michael Jackson. I believe these are out of Australia. There is an 8 out there, but these are very condition sensitive. And you can see the back over here. All right, next video, we'll switch these out. We'll go from 80 to 60, and we'll also say a story before we go into the cards.